Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we unpack the financial, operational, and leadership decisions behind successful law firms. I'm your host, John Scott, with Anders Virtual CFO Services. We help law firm owners build clarity, control, and confidence as they grow. Today's episode is exciting. We have an attorney from one of the most competitive legal markets in the country, Los Angeles. My guest today is Mason Rashtian. Did I say that right, Mason?
That's correct.
He is the founder and owner of the Mason Law Firm, based in Santa Clara, California. Mason has more than 20 years of experience in personal injury and brings a unique perspective to firm ownership, having started his career representing insurance companies, the bad guys, before shifting his focus to advocating for injured plaintiffs. In this conversation, we're hoping to talk about what it really takes to own and operate a firm in LA, and from stepping into the owner's seat to building systems to staying disciplined when competition and pressure are everywhere. Mason, welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents.
Thank you for having me, John.
So I always like to get into what got you into law and then talk about the process of going from the insurance company side where it's deny, deny, deny to the plaintiff side.
So, I wanted to be an attorney ever since I was in high school. I'm one of those guys who likes to help people. So it was one of those things that was, for me, was natural. So that's what I wanted to do. When I first started out in law school, what I wanted to do initially was become a prosecutor. But being in LA and the prosecution office, the DA's office has the hiring freeze most of the time, it was very hard to get into. So I got into the insurance defense field. So I was hired by our firm was hired by different insurance companies, and we defended people who were in lawsuits. Now, I was never house counsel, which means I was never an employee of the insurance company. We were, we were panel counsel. And then I learned a lot. That's the reason I wanted to do it, just to be able to learn the practice of law, because in law school, you don't learn how to be an attorney, right? So once I learned that, and in 2006, after seeing what insurance companies do to potential clients and plaintiffs who get injured all the time, I decided to open my office in my own hometown. So I've been here ever since.
So flipping from the side of, all the tips and tricks that the insurance company uses, you can use that to your client's benefit.
I do. So the reason I'm bringing a unique perspective is different ways, because for one thing, I'm not one of those guys who goes out there and pounds their chest all the time and says, I'm going to take you guys to court all the time and I'm going to F you up in trial, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't work that way. I actually get along very well with defense attorneys and adjusters, and you can always, get more bees with honey than with vinegar, right? So I'm a lot more reasonable when it comes to the other side, but that also helps my clients, because I tell them all the time, my job isn't just to tell you the good stuff. I have to tell you the bad stuff with the good stuff. My job is to counsel you. That's why I'm also called a counselor. So I always bring both sides of the issues to my clients so they know what's going on when we go to mediation or depositions. They know what they're going to be asked. They know what the issues are going to be, and they're not surprised.
So did you grow up in LA?
I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which is part of LA, yeah. LA is really big.
And so, yeah, it's huge. And that density of population makes it very competitive. Talk about the competition that you face and why you want to compete in that arena.
So you're right. LA is extremely competitive, and it's gotten even worse the past few years with all the billboard ads and all the TV commercials that you see, even like all the time. Before I opened my office, what I did was, when I was still doing defense work, I talked to as many attorneys that I knew who went on their own, because I wanted to know what was the best way of opening my firm, what to do, how to set it up. So that's the model I took. Now, as far as running the business of what I do, I've tried so many different things to try to get in front of people because we're not the kind of business that you're gonna need it all the time, but you have to be in people's minds. If you get into an accident or a slip and fall, you go, "Hey, I know an attorney. I've seen him." So look, I've tried a lot of been the local stuff more than the big stuff because I can't compete with those stuff. I'm not a solo practitioner.
You don't compete with Morgan and Morgan?
No, wow, those guys are awful. Completely off. If you ever see their ratings, they're like a 2.3 out of a 5.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and interesting. I just did a video yesterday that says, what are the mistakes that clients make that they wish they could undo? PI attorneys. One of them is hiring those big firms who do advertising. The problem is with those advertising firms is the bigger you are, the worse you are for your clients because you're nothing but a number to them.
Yeah,
Right?
it just turns into a marketing machine, right?
Yeah. They're a mill, literally a mill, right? So they don't care if they lose you as a client. You have like 10 other behind you.
How do you advertise? Is it online, billboards, ads? How do you do it?
So in the past 19 years now, I've tried virtually everything. I had a billboard once, a local one, didn't do anything really. I had a local TV commercial. Oh God, it was before Spectrum was Spectrum for like a year. It was a local one, didn't really do anything. Um, what has helped more than anything else is the personal contact still. The referrals that we get from people we know.
Okay.
I've done Google ad, didn't do anything. Um, I've got I've done the funnel system, didn't do anything. That's the funnel system when you're on Facebook and if you're in an accident and you're looking for something, they know and you get this ad popping up and they kind of direct you. That didn't do anything. But I mean, the thing that really helps is the personal stuff more than even to today. Now, that being said, I know most people find clients or clients find most people online. So I'm trying to do more and more online stuff, more and more social media. That's why I have the videos that I do now. I have my own podcast. I've got 10 podcast episodes right now. Um, I'm on TikTok for the first time. I joined about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's the local stuff, it's the personal stuff. The chiropractors that I know, I send a personal gift for Christmas this time instead of sending them a box of chocolate for the group. So stuff like that.
So for you, it's reputation and referrals. That's awesome.
Yeah, like this month, we actually got 5 or 6 clients from former clients,
Wow.
literally, which is the best we've ever done.
That
That
is
that's
the best referral because it's
yeah,
somebody that says, "Hey, they did a great job for me."
exactly. That's the best referral I could get. That makes me the most happiest when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I got your number from so and so."
So let's talk about at what point did you have the epiphany that this really is a business and it's not the practice of law, that it's not a charity? What was the revelation in your world that said, okay, I have to run this like a business?
I'm pretty sure I learned that pretty quick in the beginning, because if you don't start your firm that way, you're in trouble
So,
automatically.
so you start out in a PI practice. I imagine you've saved a little bit of money, but PI doesn't turn into cash. You get a case and a client, it doesn't
No.
turn into cash for several months. How'd that operate? Was that all on savings?
So I had some savings set aside. What I did was in the very beginning, I was trying to figure out the term that somebody used, a door attorney, which means anything that comes in the door, you kind of take. So I did family law in addition to PI for the first few years,
Just
and
to
I
help
hated
pay the bills and the overhead?
those. Yeah, and I didn't like. I hated it. I haven't touched a family law case in over a decade. But
It
that
does
was what
seem
I had
pretty
to do.
miserable.
I'm sorry.
It does seem pretty miserable to deal
Yeah,
with people that
yeah,
hate each other.
yeah. And I kept my cost at a minimum. I started with the smallest office in Ephesian Suite that everything was included. Didn't have a secretary, didn't have an assistant, didn't have anyone. I did everything for the first 2+ years.
Well, that delayed gratification pays off because then you can build the flywheel with some cases and start getting cash flow on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So, what was the toughest adjustment you had once you got over that hump and the cash flow curve turned? What was the toughest adjustment you had to being an owner and running a firm, hiring people, etc.?
So before I opened my firm, I always work with the firm, with many people, with assistants, secretaries. The last firm I was with, we had, I believe, 30 to 40 attorneys. So there's always somebody around. There's partners around. You have your secretary. If you want to run something by somebody, as far as an idea goes, you go talk to them or they talk to you. You have a support staff. So the biggest adjustment for me was I'm all alone. It's me, myself, and I, the three of us. That's it. So that took a while to get used to.
You can talk yourself into a lot of things, but you're right. Having those folks around to bounce things off of, it's a big comfort. My assistant does everything for me, and of course, it's the last week of the year, so she still had PTO. So I have to find the copy machine. I rely on her for everything, and I really do miss it when she's out. So, what type of cases do you take, and has it evolved over time that okay, I'm not going to touch these, I'll refer those out, these are on our sweet spot? How did that process work for you?
So obviously, anything that deals with vehicle accidents, we handle, whether it's a car accident, truck accident, bus accident, motorcycle, pedestrian. I actually used to defend truck accidents and bus accidents, so it's pretty easy to do that on the other side. We handle all sorts of slip and fall cases. I know a lot of attorneys don't like slip and falls, and they refer them out because of the notice issue that they're worried about in California, but we handle them. We don't shy away from them at all. We handle cases where there even releases signed. Let's say you go to the gym and you sign a release and you get injured. We handle those too because not all releases are going to work. We handle burn cases. Like for example, we handled a case where a 10-year-old, no, it was a 6-year-old boy who fell into an open fire pit. Right now we have a Starbucks case that's going to mediation in a month. We handle all sorts of dog bite cases, whether it's an individual party who owned the dog, or if you're injured in an apartment complex and the management company was involved, right? Anywhere where somebody is injured, we help out. I even had a cemetery case once where my client's father was moved without their consent and knowledge, and it created a whole lot of problems because they planned on burying the mother alongside with the father, right? But because they moved the father's grave without telling them, they literally had to dig up the father's grave and identify whether it's actually him or not. So
how did they figure out that dad was moved?
Well, the sister, there were two sisters. One of them would visit the dad's grave regularly. And then one day she goes over there and doesn't see the headstone, and she sees what looks like fresh dirt. So she goes to the office, and they blew her off a couple of times. So she eventually finds out that the grave their dad was put in a year ago had been previously sold to somebody else 25 years earlier. So they had to move it without telling them. And then, to make it even worse, their mom at the time was still alive, but she was in hospice, right? So they forged the mother's signature on the transfer after the grave. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And if it was 200 years ago, you'd think it was a grave robber.
Yeah. So, anything where somebody's injured, we help them. At least we try to. I have some medical malpractice cases, which most attorneys are not fond of. They're very hard to do.
Well, and they take so much longer, right?
Yeah.
And your prepaid case costs are higher. So are you able to forecast in your firm cash flow on a near-term and long-term basis based on what we do? We work with a lot of PI firms, and we look at the inventory of cases, assign values to them by type of case. We can know about how long they'll take. But what do you do in the forecasting arena for cash flow?
Honestly, I haven't done the solo case review that you're referring to. I know there's ways of doing it, What has helped me is I've been using a business coach since right after COVID.
Hmm.
So we forecast per quarter as to what the flow should be and how much we should be making per month. And then we go from that direction.
So with that coach, you set goals on how many cases we want to come in the door, how many we want to close.
Right. So my goal is, six cases per month is what I'm looking for every month. That's been my set goal for the past 3 years. Obviously, it depends on the size of the case too. I mean, a big case could be worth 3 cases, and 3 small cases could not mean that much. But that's what I feel comfortable with. Me and my assistant, 6 cases a month coming in. Um, but as far as the cash flow, again, it depends on what we're looking at. So every year we try to do a little bit better than last year. I think we did about 2.4 million last year for the firm.
How many attorneys and non-attorneys do you have?
It's me and I have one assistant. We had a part timer, but she was going to law school, so she's back. She wants to take the bar, so it's just me and my assistant.
Okay, that's great. Um, Talk about the competition you face in LA, and how do you try and differentiate yourself from the competition?
So again, since I can't do the billboards or the TV ads or even the radio ads, the best thing I can do is do the personal touch more than anything else. So I do talk about my experience being a defense attorney before I opened my own firm. The fact that I've been doing this for 28 years now does make a difference. Being what I've done in the 28 years and a former defense firm is I've practically handled any sort of case you can come up with all throughout California. I've handled cases in there from Sacramento all the way down to San Diego, in El Centro, which is the east, very close to the border of Mexico. And pretty much any kind of case that you want to come up with, I've handled. So for me, there's nothing surprising about a case. I mean, I can tell you arguments on both sides, which a lot of attorneys can't. So that makes me different, at least I think, than most attorneys that I know of.
Yeah, and I think your background and being on the other side defending these cases gives you that unique perspective where you can be honest with the client and say, "Hey, here's our risk. Here are our pros," but they can get a more straight answer from you than, "Oh yeah, we're going to win this case."
Yeah.
So you being basically a sole practitioner, you have a lot of autonomy. How does that affect your decision making in everyday operations? What cases you take, how you're going to grow? And
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Being a solo practitioner is actually, the smaller you are, the easier you are. You can move, you can pivot, right? So when COVID hit, for example, it was a lot easier for us to be able to change gears a little bit, change the way we practice. If you're in a big firm, you got multiple people have to chime in, multiple people have to agree on stuff. But for us, it's not. We can move on a dime. It's really easy. So whenever we get a potential client in, my assistant who does the intake, she's really good with the clients, and then usually we talk about it, right? If it's a straightforward case, we don't need to talk about it much, but I always get the information. We always find out, okay, does this person need treatment? Where we're going to send the person for treatment, what steps to take from the very beginning. If it's a case that she's not sure about, our conversation is a little bit longer. We discuss it, do the pros and cons. Whether it's the case we could refer out, we will. If not, we just tell them, I'm sorry, there's a reason why we can't take your case, and here's the reason why. So it's every case that comes in, we go through it just to make sure whether or not it's a fit or not.
So I want to talk about the financial part of your practice. And in PI firms, prepaid case costs are a big investment that you make. As John Morgan will say, when he loses, it's his money. And that's exactly true. A firm will advance money on behalf of the client. And if you win, you get to recover that money. What's the magnitude of your prepaid case cost? I mean, some firms, it's crippling, as they grow and take more cases until those cases settle, that case cost just sits on the balance sheet and keeps growing. how do you handle that investment? I mean, some firms are going to charging interest, they'll borrow on a line of credit and then try and charge a like amount to the client for that. I don't know if that's allowed in California.
I don't know if that's allowed, but it should never be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You should never do anything that's detrimental of your client.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the fiduciary comes in.
Is it a big part of your practice where you have a lot of cost? I mean, MedMal is going to have more cost than a motor vehicle accident.
So it depends. And because here's the other issue is any cost that I incur eventually is going to come out of the client's pocket, right?
Right.
So a lot of times there's no reason. Look, I've had plaintiffs attorneys who take depositions all the time. You don't need to take a deposition in every case, right? Half the times you know what they're going to do anyways. Take the worst case scenario and you can formulate your arguments there. So I only take depositions that are if liability is an issue, or if we're getting too close to trial and we need to know what the other side is going to say at trial. That becomes very important, right? Otherwise, I don't spend eventually be the client's money. And whenever I do need an expert, I always ask the client, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need it for. I always get their permission so they're not surprised at it. So it's hard because every case is different. The car accidents don't tend to have as much cost as some of the other cases simply because if liability is clear, you don't necessarily need an expert until you get closer to trial, which is the doctors, right? Maybe an accident reconstruction or biomechanic. But if you have slip and fall cases, depending on where you are, if you file a summary judgment motion, or even before that, you need to get an expert to go in there and either do a co-friction friction test or check on the logs, a whole lot of stuff that you need, a safety expert. So it really depends on the case more than anything else. But you're right, med-mal is the worst. That's the highest by far as case costs go. And a lot of those you can't get back because you lose the case because it's so hard to do med-mal out here.
So in California, med-mal is tougher to prove?
Yeah.
Is there anything else unique to California that's different than most states?
See, unfortunately, I don't know the law about the other states. I presume they're similar because everyone, except for Louisiana.
Louisiana has a draconian cap on med-mal.
Right. Yeah, well, they're on the French law. Everybody else is on the common law. So we should be around stuff about the same when it comes to what you need to prove and not prove. Right.
Yeah, in Louisiana, I think they set the cap back in the 70s, and it hasn't been adjusted for inflation since then. So,
for med-mal,
yeah,
and we've had a cap since the 70s. It was $250 for general damages. They just moved it to $350. But as far as the rest of the stuff you need to prove, like slip and falls, we have a notice issue. I presume it's like that everywhere because it's based on the common law, but I don't know. Yeah.
Well, let's as we wrap up, I want to talk about football. I assume you're a football fan.
I am. It's not my number one sport, but I do. Yeah.
What's your number one sport? Baseball.
I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm a huge Lakers fan. Of course, I'm a Dodger fan. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I've got Kobe's book back here. I've got.
Oh yeah.
I'm a huge Lakers fan. I'm a huge Dodgers fan. And I know we talked about the Rams a little bit, and
well, I want to talk about the Rams because we consider them the St. Louis Rams, but they were the LA Rams before that.
Yeah, but I like the Rams. They're our favorite team, but they're not my number one team.
Who's your number one?
My number one team are the Raiders. So,
yeah.
which have the worst record right now, but hey. But believe it or not, in LA, Raiders are still number one.
What a genius move, though, for the Davis family to go to Vegas, because I'm a Chiefs fan now that the Rams have left St. Louis, and I haven't done it yet, but I intend to do it next year. Go to an away game in Las Vegas and watch the Chiefs play the Raiders. They're gonna, they'll have a home and home every year, and I got to think that every football fan is going to want to go to Vegas to see their team play the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely. Especially LA. You're getting a ton of LA fans going over there. But yeah, you can make a whole weekend out of it, right? It's great.
Right.
Now,
It's a,
Mark Davis initially wanted to be back in LA. It was between them and the Chargers, and they gave it to the Chargers instead of the Raiders. I actually think the Chargers should have ended up in Vegas because they're number 3 team out here.
yeah.
So they would have had a better fan base, home base, out in Vegas than they do out here. But you're right though. I mean, the travel is great. I mean, it was before the Raiders moved. Or I'm sorry, before the Chargers moved. When they were playing San Diego, there'd be more Raider fans in San Diego than Charger fans.
Really?
Oh yeah, and for those games, they actually changed the price tickets for people who come from out of town to be more Raider fans. Yeah.
The surge pricing, yeah. Well, I love the Rams, the team, dislike the owner. And now my Kansas City Chiefs are doing the same thing, moving from Kansas City, Missouri into Kansas. Yeah, I've got 5 more years of them being at Arrowhead, which, I was always hopeful they would stay there. But billionaires do what billionaires do, and they take free money.
Yeah. So do you still follow the Ram games?
I do occasionally. They didn't play very well last night.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about last night's game.
Yeah, and that was shocking to me. I thought they would have won that game handily, but
well, yeah, especially since they screwed up the Seattle game before. I thought they were going to come out firing on all cylinders and be really mad about blowing the Seattle game, but no, they were like asleep in the first half.
Yeah, it is. That's why I don't bet on sports, because I bet with emotion, and that never works out. So.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, betting is a huge problem in all the sports. I mean, it's not just
football. It really is, and you get to the point where you have to question whether or not people have been gotten to, and we've had scandals where people are point shaving or laying off, and
and honestly, every time
you want to think that that's not going to be an issue, but in reality, it can be.
Yeah, when I watch a football game now, if there's an obvious call that referees blow, the first thing I think of, all right, whose side are you on as far as the betting goes? I'm not saying it's true or not, but it obviously it just comes to mind. It's like, how can you blow a call like that? You have one job, and that is to referee this particular play, and you miss this obvious call. How is that possible?
Well, and if you're watching on TV and they run replay after replay, and you're like, come on, that was pretty. But in real speed, it's probably more difficult. I do like the fact that, in football, the league office is watching, and they'll, when they can, will call and overrule something. We're in a dangerous territory, especially in college with NIL, and now sports betting is legal. There was a time just recently where the NCAA was going to allow players to bet. I'm like, that's the biggest mistake ever.
Oh my God.
They pulled back on that. Mason, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you telling us about your firm, how you run the firm, your discipline, and operating in a high-pressure market like LA. If folks want to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
So, going to social media is pretty easy. Just make sure it's the Mason Law Firm, not the Mason Law Group, because that's somebody else, and we're not going to talk about that. But the Mason Law Firm in Santa Clarita or Valencia. My website is MRSCV Law, which is MrSCVLaw.com. And I believe my 855 number is Mason LA, so Mason Law.
Oh,
so it's easy to get a hold of.
Clever enough. Mason, thank you again for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents. And thank you to all the listeners. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure and subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other law firm owners who are navigating growth. Until next time, this is John Scott with Judicial Dollars and Cents.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.